pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everyone to this far distant meeting. Shows everybody 6 feet away from everything.
Go ahead and do the roll call.
Okay.
Everybody's here, I think.
Let's go through it.
Okay, we'll start with Julie Buck.
Julie?
I'm here.
Okay.
Gene Roberts.
Jane Roberts is here.
Jane Roberts is here.
Okay.
Shannon?
Shannon Middleton, he's
Shannon's
here.
here.
Andy?
Andy Hong.
Andy is here.
Alberto?
Filberto.
Yep, I'm here. I'm having a little bit of hard time hearing you guys. Sound far away.
Just,
Just,
Why don't you move over there?
I can.
why don't you just hear?
Okay, that'll do it.
And this is Marlon. I'm here.
I was just going to call you. Thank you.
And Lauren.
Lauren, are you here? Lauren Mayer.
Yes, Lauren is on the call.
Very good. We have a full council, all in different places, and so we'll move on. We don't have a public hearing tonight, but I want to turn the meeting over for a few minutes to Justin Lee.
Wait, you need to do the agenda.
Oh,
This is Justin. Before I do my presentation, I want to do some housekeeping items on the
We have
remote
to,
access.
we have to do the agenda first.
No, I realize that, Connie, but what I want to chime in is just talk about how we're going to run the meeting remotely.
Okay,
Yeah, so if you're not talking or for a period of time, please mute your device so we don't get extraneous noise. And then if you do speak, please state your name first, just so we can identify who's talking. And this is especially true if you are creating a motion or voting on a motion. We need to be able to keep track of who's making those actions. That's about it. And then once we get further to the meeting, if there's some public comment, which I don't know if there's going to be today, because people need to, of course, state their identity so no one's talking. But that's about it. More from me in a little bit.
so should they, when they vote, should they just do it one at a time?
Yeah, it's going to be a little awkward, but we'll get there. You know.
Okay,
the next item on the agenda. Thank you, Justin.
Vote in favor when they feel compelled to.
The next item on the agenda is to have a motion to approve the agenda and the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
This is Phil. I'll make that motion to approve the consent agenda and the consent agenda.
This is Andy, and I will second that.
thank you.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for this meeting tonight and the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. The agenda is adopted. The next item is the presentation, and it's on COVID-19. It's an update, and this will be given by Justin Lee. And Justin, it's all yours.
Okay, thanks. So as most of you already know, I'm working for the city as our city planner. And in that role, I've also been working as a liaison for the EOC, which is part of our emergency management operation. So the updates I have are kind of related to both of those and just how the COVID-19 has impacted that. So first off, we are obviously having this meeting remotely. There's a number of different things that we can and cannot do right now as a city government and as a city council. And you can learn more about that if you were to look up Governor Inslee's proclamation 20-28 as it relates to the Open Public Meetings Act and the Public Records Act. It's a long piece, but the main relevant information is on the third page of this, which basically says that the city council cannot take any action, any formal action, unless it is a necessary or routine matter, or if it is necessary to respond to COVID-19 outbreak or a health emergency and things like that. So that is going to become relevant as I talk a little bit more about what I've been up to, because it limits on what can be done right now. So from a city planning standpoint, I'll first talk about that. One of the main things that I do is I work with Jeff Raley, our building inspector and code enforcement officer, to process and review building permits. Right now, we are not issuing any new permits. That the county is doing the same thing. That is, by a order from the governor. No new permits unless it is related to critical infrastructure or critical activity. But basically, like residential construction, it's on hold. And so if, of the permits that we have issued right now, most of them are people that are living in their house that are doing some work on it. So obviously they can keep working on it at home, but if it gets to a point where it triggers some sort of review by Jeff, we've directed him, not to go there. So unless he can review it sufficiently with photographs, it's not getting reviewed and it's just on hold. So that's just the way it is right now. That's both, again, in adherence to the governor's orders and also for Jeff's safety. The second thing on the planning standpoint that I've been doing is the critical area ordinance update. And for those of you that don't know, the critical areas ordinance is a part of the Goldendale Municipal Code that basically deals with environmentally sensitive areas. And every several years, the Growth Management Act, which is a state law, requires us to have periodic updates done. And most of those updates are intended to reflect changes to state and federal law, as well as administrative law, specifically guidances that the Department of Ecology puts out or the Department of Fish and Wildlife will put out. And the way that they have structured that is that the Department of Commerce, who administers a lot of monies, they won't let you get money unless you have an updated critical area ordinance. So we've been undergoing this process of updating it with the intent of trying to get it passed by the end of June. But right now, we're not allowed to pass that law legally under the Proclamation 2028. So I'm still moving forward with the updates. I've been working with the Department of Ecology, Department of Fish and Wildlife, and the Department of Commerce to make our critical area ordinance up to snuff and to reflect different changes that have happened and to create more transparency and regulatory clarity. And the plan is for next meeting, we're going to workshop the draft changes that I've done. So buckle up, it's going to be a long discussion. It's probably going to be really boring for most of you. So I'm sorry in advance, but we have to go through this because part of the update process is what they call public participation component. So we have to have a public meeting where we inform the public and stakeholders and let them participate in this update process. And from there, we'll send out a SEPA and we'll have additional meetings to go over the updates, and eventually we'll have the council review it with the aim towards adopting it, but right now we can't really adopt it. we're still gonna work towards doing what we can, so, if Governor Inslee lifts or amends Order 2028, we can get it done. Now, that's really important to know because once we have the critical area ordinance updated, we can get money for, let's say, a parks plan, which is the next thing on my to-do list, is updating our parks plan and getting money so we can put some money toward parks. The other thing is, as you may have heard a little bit about community development block grants. Now, these are monies that come from the federal government through HUD and that are administered through the Department of Commerce. And it's basically money for communities like us to use for different projects. You may have heard it in the news because there's a lot of money from that recent bill in DC that was allocated to CDBG money for rural communities like us. So there's a bunch more extra money in the pot right now for us as a community to potentially receive. But the thing is, we can't even apply for that until we get our CAO, critical area ordinance, passed. And we're not legally allowed to pass that right now. So it's a little bit of an aporia, or kind of a logical conundrum here that we have. But that's, I guess, how these things work, right? Anyway, so that's the update on the planning side. Does anyone have any questions about that before I keep going?
This is Lauren. Justin, I wonder if the roadblock to being able to apply for those block grants being the finalization of that plan, if that isn't an exception to make that more of an essential activity so that we can potentially apply for some of those additional funds that are available through block grants.
Yeah, that's a good, what we can do is we can still apply for a grant, and what Commerce will say is, hey, we've awarded you the grant, but we're not actually going to vest the funds until your CAO is updated. But that's how it would normally work. But I think that's a good point, especially if the grant is going towards critical infrastructure or, something related to responding to the emergency situation, maybe there's a way around this. So I'll look into that. It's a good idea.
Okay, as a follow-up, Lauren again, I did gloss through some of those new block grant funds that are available the other day and some other work that I was doing. And it seemed like there were some potential opportunities for the city, but I didn't really have time to identify any specifically. Is anyone looking at that right now to determine if there are opportunities that we should consider pursuing?
Well, I just did a seminar last week on the CDBG process, so that's on my agenda, and really the next thing to do is to start having some brainstorming about this. How that's going to take shape, I'm not sure just yet, but it could be a council workshop, it could just be informal meetings. We could be creative with how we do it at this stage.
Excellent. Thank you, Justin.
You bet.
This is Phil.
Hey.
Into that grant, that acronym, CB,
Yeah.
Dick Mature and both Dave Kavanaugh are also working on that from the county side and the EOC as well.
Great. Yeah, and I'll connect with them and see what they have in mind. Maybe there's a joint project, or just maybe they just have some knowledge about this if they're already kind of pursuing it a little bit more actively. So I'll check in with them. Okay. Awesome. So yeah, that's on the horizon from a planning standpoint for sure. And it's a long process, the CDBG process. It's not like you just submit application materials. Sometimes, depending on what you want, there's months of preparing your application, because a lot of times it might be based on census data, or it might require you to get formal bids from contractors, and there's a whole process for putting that out. So it can take a while. And this year's deadline is the beginning of June, but that was before, that stimulus bill passed in Congress. So that's another thing that remains to be seen just yet is, are they going to push out that June deadline? Because even if we started right now coming up with a project, really hard deadline to meet right now for 2020. Most people that I participated in this seminar with were thinking about it for 2021 because that's how long it can take just to get an application prepared. Again, depending on the size and the scope of the project. But we're still waiting for guidance on whether they're going to, extend that deadline or maybe make a rolling deadline. We're just not sure yet. So I'm staying on top of that. Gonna find out. Okay, anything else on the planning stuff that went over? Okay. Again, interrupt me if I'm going too fast or if you have a question, feel free to just chime in. The next thing is code enforcement. I've been working with Jeff and Larry on code enforcement. Specifically, Chapter 8 of the municipal code deals with our nuisance ordinance. I recommend everyone take a look. It's 8.45. Read through that so you understand what we define as a nuisance. And it's things like what we might call an unlawful accumulation of trash, unlicensed broken down vehicles on people's properties, different things like that. So this is generally speaking the type of activity that we've been trying to clean up. And for the last few years, the method that we've been pursuing was voluntary compliance. And that works for what we might call like a low-level offender. Someone that just let something go, the grass got too tall, too much, they hadn't gone to the dump in a few weeks, and we check in with them, and most of the time maybe they hadn't realized it got out of hand, and they get on top of it and they clean it up. But then we have people that have a pattern of allowing nuisance violations to accumulate on their property. And for a variety of different reasons, these offenders do not voluntarily comply. So what we've done is we've gone back to the nuisance code and we say, well, what's the process here for addressing this? And we've been pursuing the process that exists in our municipal code. The law that already exists on the books, that maybe wasn't being as heavily enforced. And so what that process is we gather photographic evidence of the different code violations. And we basically create a hearing before the Citizen Review Board, which is appointed by the mayor. It's 5 individuals from our community. And then they also kind of serve as a zoning board as well. So they're a formal kind of quasi-judicial board that will accept evidence from us. Now, this is like an administrative hearing. So there's evidence, and there's an opportunity for the violator to present their own evidence and to kind of make arguments for and against, and then a determination is made. And basically, as a city, we go in and we say, these are violations. If we were asking the board to basically say, yes, these violations exist, the property owner is in violation, they have X amount of days to clean it up. If they don't clean it up or otherwise remediate the situation, then there are penalties. And that could be that the city is granted the ability to enter on the property and remediate those things and build that back to the property, which over time could become a lien on the property. And if it gets really bad, we pursue a proceeding in civil court, basically requiring the property owner to abate the conditions. And if it goes really far down, it could get to the point where the government can end up seizing the property if it's uninhabitable. So this is a really long process that, mind you, already exists in our code. We're not making anything up here. We're just trying to enforce the laws that are already on the books. And so we had investigated a number, all the different. Larry, Mike, Jeff, and I drove down every single street in Goldendale over the course of a couple weeks and looked at every single property and made a list of all the properties with big violations, and we have created cases, if you will, for the top offenders. And we had 7 hearings set before the Citizen Review Board that was supposed to be this Thursday. But we have to continue that out because we're not allowed to do anything right now, or according to the governor, 2028. So we sent out notices today, extending it out for another month. But basically, we have started getting the ball rolling on code enforcement. We're trying to go after the properties that, objectively speaking, have the most violations. Again, we're trying to keep that as objective as possible. We're not picking on people, even though every single offender thinks we're picking on them. We're going after, things that are, in often cases, are dangerous. One of the things that you'll see in the nuisance code is what's called an attractive nuisance. And that is this legal concept that there's a condition existing on a property that's likely to attract a child and likely to injure them. And so there's many instances where there's things that are exposed or exist on a property that could really hurt someone. So this is what we've been working on. It's a lot of work, and we really have to take a lot of care to make sure we're doing it right, because these are people's rights and liberties that we are potentially infringing upon. So we need to make sure we're following the due process under the law. And so we're very sensitive to making sure that we're doing it by the book, that we're documenting everything properly, that we're providing sufficient notice to people. Because at the end of the day, it's critical that the process is followed to a T. And that takes a lot of time. And so we've been working on that, and for better or worse, we've made some progress, but we're having to basically continue it out, kick it down the road until we're legally allowed to have that hearing. I'll keep the council updated on that. But anyway, that's kind of a big development that we've been working on that I wanted to share with you. Does anyone have any questions about what we're doing with regard to code enforcement?
Are there any questions?
Oh, okay. Am I still connected? Okay. Sorry, it's a lot of information. If I were here with you, I would have had a PowerPoint. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is working with the EOC. I've been working with Phil, in fact, at the EOC, which has been great. I was asked to come in to work as a liaison to the business community, and I've sort of become also liaison to the city as well through my city planning role. And kind of as those two things, one of the first things I started doing was when the stay-in-place order first came down, there's been a lot of questions about what businesses were essential and which were not. And before the governor's office had details, more details, and before they implemented this website, this portal that you can go to for clarification, I was working with Reggie on communicating with the public and business owners about what was essential and what was not. The main things to report on that is that there's been a lot of questions and concerns about the Bargain Boutique on 100 block of East Main Street, about them being open. And early on, we had a conversation with the owner, and she informed us that they were selling food-grade essential oils, which people use for medicinal purposes, and other sorts of household medicinal items. And then they're also selling new undergarments. So we felt that those items could be classified as essential for people's health and to promote a sanitary living environment for people. And we had numerous conversations with the owner about the steps she was taking to ensure that her customers were staying safe. And she told us about how she was had all these masks, had gloves, hand sanitizer, all these different things that she was requiring customers to utilize before they entered. And she was monitoring and maintaining proper distances of her customers. And we stressed to her that people can't just come and browse, that she needs to focus her business on curbside pickup or pre-orders. And we've been in constant communication with her, and we feel good that she's, doing those things to maintain safety. And then, as of last week, she actually applied for a grocer license, which comes from the Department of Revenue, and she, I guess, put an order in with a food distributor, and they plan on doing non-perishable groceries as well. So we felt that additional fact really, underscored her business as providing an essential need for people. But a lot of people have reached out and have questioned and complained about it. And so that's why I'm bringing it up, just to let you know that we know about that and we've been addressing it. Now, since then, the state, like I mentioned, has put out this web portal where anyone can submit an inquiry. You can get clarification, or you can ask for an inclusion in the essential classification. And we submitted a request to them, and they came back and said what we thought, which is that she is essential as long as she follows the necessary social distancing and sanitization practices. And I say that because it's not just me making a decision. It's we're seeking guidance from the governor's office, but we're here to maybe interpret or explain that to people. Okay, so does anyone have a question about that particular business? Okay. So the next business, or it's more like a project, which it's created some contention, is the construction of the county facility, which is in the city limits, as you know. Now, we have also sought clarification from the governor's office, and they too have said that this is allowable. It is part of what they call a critical infrastructure, and it is a project that, according to the governor's office, is allowed to happen. And I know some people have been concerned about that. And again, it's allowed to happen so long as that the construction crews or whoever's working are, maintaining social distancing practices and sanitization practices. And Larry and I had a call with Gordy Kelsey the other day and relayed the concern that community members were having about this. And they assured us that they were doing everything in their power to create some kind of oversight mechanism to make sure that the contractors coming in were abiding by these policies. So, does anyone have any questions or concerns that they want to talk about on that right now?
Joseph, this is Mylan. Is there any indication of when they may potentially start? Have they any of that?
Yeah. Sweet. I think, Larry, you're more familiar with the timeline. Can you chime in on that?
Yeah, the timeline is, this is Larry Bellamy, and the timeline for the work to begin is the first week here in April. They'll do some preliminary work like bring in construction fencing. They'll set up a construction shack where they'll have their office buildings. They'll work on restriping the area in the West 100 block of West Court. They're going to restripe that. They're going to get rid of at least a half of the diagonal parking and then the parallel parking on the south side of the West 100 block of Court Street. So this next week you'll see things starting to mob in, and then in the following weeks, probably 2 or 3 weeks, they'll begin the excavation work and start on the foundation and so forth. They're taking down some poles and setting some poles for electricity and communication, networking, and things like that. So I think they're going to be starting to move people out of those parking spots and clear the way for them to start putting up the construction fencing.
All right. Does that answer everyone's questions about the county building? I mean, what's going to happen? I know is things are going to start to happen, and we're going to get a lot of calls call, or you as a council member are gonna get inquiries. And so I wanna make sure that everyone here understands why it's happening, or, allowed to happen for that matter, that everyone understands the precautions are being taken to ensure the safety of the people working on that project and our community. And, so that when people reach out and we explain it to people, that we maintain a sense of calmness, because that's what's really important right now. Little things can easily get blown out of proportion. As you know, people are under a lot of stress, and so a thing that Phil and I have been working on a lot at the EOC is making sure we're communicating to people in a way to keep them calm, because the last thing we need is people getting stressed out unnecessarily right now.
So this is Andy. Just voicing my opinion, I personally feel they should postpone the project for at least a month, 2 months, until, some of this hopefully gets better. But, I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. But just my opinion, I feel that they should postpone it. I'm not sure how many other council members feel, but that's just my opinion.
Justin, this is Mayor Cannon. I've had a discussion with Public Works employee as well as with the union representative for our city, and they both expressed very strong concern about the safety factor for Public Works people in a trench trying to do their sewer and water project in preparation for this new building. It was a very efficient approach, but with this having to do it in the midst of all that, while we still have the limitations because of the virus, they're very concerned about the safety of our workers, and they're strong on that.
Did you get that, Justin?
Oh, yeah, okay, I thought there was more. So, I too am, I'm concerned, I'm self-quarantining myself, well, that's redundant, but I think that, like I said, we need to make sure that everything is being done to protect the people working on this project. If they don't want to work on it, that's their choice, right? We can't make them, and I'm not going to make anyone do anything they don't want to do here. But, I know the county is implementing a plan, and we can certainly create a plan of action to make sure that our crew is as safe as possible. And maybe there are ways that they can work on this with proper distancing. Maybe there's some creative solutions to that haven't been pursued in the past because it wasn't necessary.
Justin,
But that's something that we're going to have to talk to with the Public Works crew about coming up with a plan for that.
Justin,
But again, I know, Larry, didn't you say that the water main work wasn't going to even be happening for a little while? Potentially at least a month or so?
Well, again, it all hinges on the construction activities and how soon they mold things in. Hooking up the water and sewer lines are sometimes need to be done as they're doing the excavation work, and we just need to coordinate with them. Right now, what we're doing is we're preparing to make sure that we have everything in place so that we're ready at a moment's notice to do the work. For instance, we have to tap a 6-inch tap and a 3-inch tap, and the city, for instance, doesn't have the ability to do that, so we have to hire that out. So that's the thing that we have to get organized. And then the other thing that we need to do is make sure that those materials that are needed, like the meter and like the taps, that the materials that are needed to use to keep that project moving forward, make sure they're on hand, and so that when the contractor is ready for the installation of the water and the sewer, then we're ready to go. And we're still trying to coordinate that with the contractor, again, with his time schedule, We just need to be responsive so it doesn't slow the project down.
Yeah, and this is sort of a moving target. It's kind of a newer development. I mean, obviously, I talked, Andy, you and I talked the other day, and that triggered this conversation that Larry and I had with the county public works about what they were going to do. But it really, as far as the concerns coming from our public works crew and their union representative, that is all pretty new, and we still, need to come up with a solution on that, and whether that's, that might require an executive session. I'm not sure just yet. I'm not going to speak for like just yet what our strategy is, but we need to, it's very new, and we need to figure out a way that we can get this work done as reasonably as possible while keeping everyone as safe as possible. And, we're going to be working on coming up with a solution to that in the next day or so.
Justin?
Yeah.
So I have a couple of concerns that, in reading my packet, I don't want to get into the whole personnel. It's not our business. It should be a technical officer to handle that. However, I do have some concerns about the construction going on because it essentially brings people from outside into our community, and the potential for those people being infected and bringing that from the big cities or wherever they come from. That being said, I'm more concerned about the concerns brought forward by the union and by the public works, because I'm not a construction person, but I have picked up a shovel from here and there. And I would say, if everybody has a shovel, you don't want to stand within 6 feet of each other. That's approximately the length of a shovel. So that would be unsafe conditions, period, all around. That would create the 6-foot gap that we should have. So if they are afraid that they're going to be standing too close with a shovel, we have some more concerns about their safety. The other thing is, if there's concerns about them working together, those concerns should be handled now and not at a construction site. What is being done to protect their safety on their day-to-day business? I know working for the county public, the buildings and grounds, they traveled one in a single truck, they maintained their distance at several sites. I've been in, at my work, where we had to have 2 or 3 of them show up to take care of different things, and they maintain proper safety as recommended by the CDC. So if the union and its members are concerned about safety, then maybe we should be handling that safety in a different way, because it's not to the construction site per se, it is how they're handling their business from day to day and following CDC recommendations.
Sure. Yeah.
Concerns are existing at one site, those concerns should be existing at all sites. And so, do we consider better safe practices as recommended by CDC? Do we ask the state, our public health department, for recommendations? Or do we ask everybody to, what's the word? Mandatory days off so that everybody can be safe. Do we have them work from home, which in that case we don't have work from home. So, use their sick time, use their vacation time, use calm time. Some decisions have to be made if there is concern for the day-to-day safety.
Definitely. And like I said, this is a new development in terms of the union's expression of, concern for their members. This was like today. That's how new it is. And so, yeah.
Minimize their concerns whatsoever.
Oh, no.
Contrary to that, I want to make sure that their concerns for safety are handled by the city appropriately and in an urgent manner, because, again, we're not gonna wait for 2 months to figure out that all our staff is sick. You know, those steps should already being put in place, whether it be, you know, all the way from the top or to their individual supervisor or their personal responsibility for heeding the advice of the experts.
Definitely. And we already have a general policy that we've put in place just for our day-to-day operations since we closed City Hall and things like that a week and change ago. But, you know, now that this concern has been raised to us through the union, I mean, this is something that we're going to be working with our crew on coming up with a solution in the next few days so that we can have a solution in place, have a policy in place so that we, like Larry's saying, we can respond to the county's contractors when they need us. So it's definitely a priority for us. Absolutely.
So Dustin, this is Shannon. So they're concerned about not being in an open ditch, doing sewer work. Yet last week I seen 3 of them riding shoulder to shoulder in a pickup. I don't think that any more than one should be in a pickup.
Okay.
Justin,
Yeah.
on the matter of the Public Works crew and this working on this project in these particular times, we need to do a very thorough assessment of the equipment they actually have so they are safe. And I think we need to explore whether this is a city project that has to be done in such times as this, because I know the union has already mentioned liability, and our city works very, very hard to avoid that type of situation.
Yep.
That's it.
This is Andy again. I'd like to echo what Bill was saying about his concerns, but I also want to make it clear too, I'm not against that building being built. I think it's a great project. I think it's something that our community needs. But I just, with the concerns and with everything going on, again, my opinion is I would hope that they would put this on hold, but it doesn't sound like they're going to.
So this is Shannon, and I'm not speaking for the county. That's between Gordy and Jeff. But I do know they have some pretty extreme precautions in place for this building. I know they've also put pretty extreme precautions in place for us working. So we actually have split shifts where half our crew works totally different days, and we can only ride one person per vehicle, and when we get out of that vehicle, we have to literally wipe it down with, like Clorox wipes before anybody else can get in the vehicle.
Shannon, this is Mylan. Are they requiring you to wear masks?
No, because we're all in separate vehicles.
Okay, well, I guess maybe I'll talk for Kurt. When you're out working on a project or whatever, that you have to wear a mask.
No, because we're not working within 6 feet of each other.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wonder about the construction crew. Would they be required to wear masks?
I think they do. I don't want to put any quotes out there because I haven't seen. I've just heard a couple things that, like, when the truck drivers get out, they have to have masks on, and they have to be gloved, and when they get back in the truck, they have to remove their gloves and re-wipe down everything. So they'll probably have most of the truck drivers never get out of their truck.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know about the workers working on the building. I imagine they're going to have to be masked because they will probably be within 6 feet of each other.
This is Joe again. Maybe I'm not understanding the whole concern, and maybe that just needs to be dealt with separately. But if the concern is that they don't have the proper equipment to be in in a ditch or whatever it is, then that's a whole OSHA concern. It has nothing to do with COVID-19. If the situation is being within close proximity of each other, there is protection equipment out there. You know, today might be a little more costly than it was a couple months ago, obviously, but they are going to need the proper safety equipment, either for digging a trench, for securing the trench, that it doesn't collapse. You know, that should be an everyday thing, whether that trench is done now, a month from now, or last year. There are safety standards to be followed. With the whole COVID-19, there are safety standards to be followed in close proximity, and I think once those are mitigated, then the concern is invalid. And if our city is not mitigating those concerns, then that's a whole different animal.
Yeah, and I think that this COVID, this is so new to everybody that trying to incorporate CDC guidelines and other, you know, standards issued by higher up authorities is still something everyone's trying to figure out. And I think now we've gotten to the point where that's something that we need to work with our public works crew to come up with a more thorough policy with regard to that. I mean, it sounds, and that's something that we're definitely going to be working on. You know, this is, now that that the stay-in-place order has been continued longer, you know, just when we closed City Hall, we can change and go. It was unclear how long this was going to last for. Everyone had different expectations and interpretations of the situation. So I think it's very reasonable for us to address this at this point. And that's what we're going to do.
I will tell you, Justin, we have been told that we could possibly be on this shift change up to the 1st of July.
Yeah, I believe that at this point, you know. So I think this is just kind of the natural progression of these things where we got to the point where we need to reevaluate and redefine some of the policies that we have, you know, with our public works.
And I think the county, working with Gordy is pretty easy, so I do know that as far as if any changes need to be made as far as safety or whatever, if the city was just to talk to Gordy, that it would be done.
Definitely, yeah. I think that's very reasonable. But, you know, beyond like a simple, you know, one time, can we make this different? You know, the underlying current here is that we need to have a more thorough policy in place, perhaps. But we need to look a little bit more into it. You know, this is all very, very new to us. I mean, not just the situation, but just specifically the union's concerns. So we're still trying to understand that and come up with a plan. So, like I said, this is definitely a priority for us.
This is Lauren here. Thanks for paying attention to that, Justin. I think that first and foremost, obviously, employee safety is important, but also just overall risk mitigation for the city. And I think that there's a couple of things that might help us to reduce risk, which might be considering to having private contractors come in and do that work rather than city staff. And that cost may be offset, one, by the revenues that are generated from the county's investments within the city. And additionally, there's COVID-19, disaster relief funds that are going to be out there to recoup some local government costs too over time. So one consideration might be to look at bidding out those projects, even if it costs a little bit more, to have private individuals come in and complete the work rather than city employees, especially with concerns towards potential litigation associated with that risk.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that, try to see if there's some options available, especially in the short term.
Just one more thing. When I discussed this with the union representative, I thought probably he wanted me to talk to the county commissioners, but he said, no, they will do that as the union because they cover county and city employees. So the commissioners will probably be dealing with this Tuesday, or at least whenever the union decides to go forth with the concerns of our public workers.
Yeah, so, I definitely won't be surprised if this ends up being a joint effort to a certain degree, So, we're in the early stages of this, but it's definitely gonna happen, in terms of making the necessary changes, so our crew's comfortable with their work environment.
Exactly.
So Justin, this is Shannon, I just have a quick question. Seeing how we have such a shortage of housing in Goldendale, wouldn't that be considered critical infrastructure?
What? Creating new private residences?
Correct.
Well, it's, it's not up to me to make that, determination, unfortunately, as much as I might agree with you. I mean, we can push, if the council wants, we can push the governor's office and ask for an exception based on our community's, perhaps, circumstances as compared to other communities. I'm not really sure what that process entails, asking for inclusion in the essential work, but I can certainly look into it and, see what that entails, because I would love to see those folks being able to work if they need to, especially if it's for that purpose. Yeah. But I do believe that, under the order, you can create, a residence if it is connected to an essential service. So the example that they gave was, building a house for a doctor, who needed a house so they could work, the hospital or something like that. But the initial language coming from the governor's office was, you trying to build a house just so you can live didn't count according to them. So we can definitely kind of look into that a bit more. If that's what the council would like.
No, it was just a question that if they were considering the county building as critical, why wouldn't they consider new residences in a place that is lacking housing to be critical?
Well, they just kind of blanketed it like, the government, they call it critical infrastructure, and they group the governmental facility as part of critical infrastructure. That's just the way that they have their reasons, good, bad, or indifferent, that's just the way. I'm not here to, I'm not here to, like, my opinion about it, I just want to let you know that's what that's
Right.
rule is.
I got you, I understand, and I think you're doing a good job, just don't get me wrong.
No, it's a good point. Okay, so, anyway, I assure you that, we are working on getting this issue as resolved as possible, and we'll keep the council updated on that. But I feel like we kind of got off track a little bit. I know it's just like, we're almost 8 o'clock, but, we started talking about the building being built, and people were concerned about, okay, on one hand, there was our public works and their concerns, but then on the other hand, there was just the project happening at all. I mean, but if we resolve our public works crew's concerns, I mean, is that enough to is the council going to feel comfortable with the project moving forward at that point? Or are they two separate things, or what?
I'm comfortable with the project moving forward as long as we're using all the precautions. I just think we need to get protective gear and have our public works crew
Lauren. I think the project should definitely move forward if it can be done safely, like Shannon noted. But it'd be great if there's policies that are developed that note how that safety is going to be accomplished, and that the union signs off and acknowledges that.
Great. Okay, thanks for the clarification. Well, okay. Can I move on to the next thing?
Yes.
I don't want to cut anyone off. So, in working with the EOC at one of the projects that Phil and I got involved with was working with the Goldendale School District. Initially, it was a couple of weeks ago in coordinating with them, serving as a resource to make sure that their regular food service, was successful. And they were offering food service Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, breakfast and lunch. They opened it up to pretty much any kid under the age 18 and younger, not just students. And we were coordinating with them, and then that evolved into working with the school district to make sure that students had meals for spring break, which started on Friday and is all of this week because the kitchen staff was taking spring break, and so they wouldn't be continuing their regular food service. So we coordinated with Amy Waddell over at the Grange, who's been she's been working on the Backpack for Kids program, which is kind of an offshoot of the food service that they put boxes together. They call them backpacks, they're not actually backpacks, but they put these bags together for kids that are in need, for them and their families. And so Amy was sort of already running this program. That had sort of evolved during this crisis to more people getting food, and we were able to get Amy on board and work with us, and she and volunteers from the Grange put together, it was like 350 or so boxes of food that was food for like 2 meals a day for like 6 days. It was really awesome, and so I just wanted to kind of recognize the people that volunteered to make that happen. In addition to Ruth, at our kitchen manager at the school district, we had Amy Waddell and her sons, Bet Richard Lefevre, Lori Klug, Eileen Kelsey, Alan Hale and his children, Miles Whitmire, and Lene Johnson, and then their spouses. So all those people came together, and they went to Yakima, and they got all this food, and they worked with the school district, and for a few days they put together all this food so that our kids in our community could have food this week. So we're really proud that we're able to make this happen, and it's a really positive thing that the community came together. We were able to have all these different groups coordinate and work together for a common cause, and especially during these times. And so that was a really positive thing that happened, and so everyone's on spring break right now, and I guess they don't have to go back to school. But we're still gonna taking this like week by week with the food thing, because this is just gonna keep evolving. Just because school, they're not gonna go back to school. There's still gonna be kids that are gonna need food, and that might not. Well, I can tell you that's gonna continue into the summer, even when school would have been scheduled to end. So there's gonna be some ongoing efforts that's gonna have to be made to make sure that kids are getting fed in the community, and whether that's with the school district or the city or the EOC or the Grange, it's going to evolve, but it's definitely going to be something you're going to be hearing more about. And in that vein, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the Washington Gorge Action Programs, which are sort of casually referred to as the food bank in town. If you recall, we had a presentation from the folks at WAGCAP, I don't know, it was maybe 6 months ago. It was right before we kind of got really deep into asked us for some support. They kind of explained what they were doing for the community, and they serve a lot of customers, a lot of families in our community. And I was talking to Leslie, the executive director, today, because I heard from folks at the Grange that they were doing a really great job, that they had a lot more traffic, a lot more people coming to them, and this is true. They have a lot more people coming to them, to the point where almost about half of their current customers are all new people, or people that had previously come to the food bank and then stopped for a period of time and are now in a position that they need that support again. So they are servicing a big portion of our community, and it's grown a lot during this crisis. And they're doing a really good job. They're putting really good boxes together with a lot of good quality food, and a lot of it, for families to live off of. And for a lot of people that lost their jobs when, a lot of this first stay in place order came down, they're just now, getting to the point where they're missing that paycheck. And so, I think we're going to see even more of a demand for WAGAP, especially with, what's going to happen with the school lunches being kind of up in the air as we get into the end of the school year. So during the budget process, I don't know if you remember, we as city council, I say we because I was on it at the time, we allocated $5,000 for WAGAP. And there was a stipulation in there that we give them the money, but it had to go towards food. It couldn't go towards, a photocopier or an employee's salary or something. We wanted it to go towards food and not towards other things. And basically, Larry and I are in the process of crafting that language into the contract with WAGAP so we can get them their money. So by next meeting, we'll have a contract for the council to review, and hopefully accept that will allow us to disperse the funds to WAGAP, because they really need it right now, more than ever. Their supply chain is good, but what they're finding is that their customers are asking for products that they're not accustomed to providing, like household goods, as you might expect, toilet paper, other paper products, cleaning supplies, things like that, which are really important to maintaining people's, sanitary living conditions. But the impression I got was that, WAGAP, they provide food. They don't have relationships necessarily with wholesalers that have household goods, right? So there's going to be a little bit of adjustment there, and we might want to consider incorporating that in our contract language. So we're not saying you can only buy food, but you buy food and other items to support people's, sanitary, healthy lifestyle, things like that. So we might want to sort of ask the council, I guess, if we can kind of be a little creative with the language so we can make it a little more inclusive. We're not going to have it be so broad that to get away from the intent of the original language of restricting it to food. Like, we don't want it to go towards overhead or blah, 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 but we want it to go towards goods that people need. So that was the first thing I kind of wanted to propose. And then I also wanted to propose that we give them more money. And I'm going to say let's give them $10,000 instead of $5,000, because they need it, and they're serving an even bigger portion of our community than they were 6 months ago, and they're going to be serving even more of our community in 6 days from now. And so I think that they are an organization that is worth supporting, and they can really use our help right now. And if we can give it to them, I think it's worth doing.
This is Phil.
Yep.
Question, the original request and what we contemplated before, was that 5 or 10?
5,000.
So I know the budget committee, which you and I were both on, I think. Yeah. We played around with a bunch of different numbers, but I think ultimately what we presented to council was 5. but it may have been 10 at some point. I don't recall.
Justin, this is Andy. I recall, I think it was 10, and then we lowered it to 5, I believe.
Yeah.
I have a question for Larry. Larry, how much, is 10,000 gonna be a big deal budget-wise? Or is there any way we can maybe do more in the future? Do 10 and then plan for more in the future?
Another $5,000 we can use, we have budgeted up for another $5,000.
Perfect. One other question too is, while Wall-Gap is doing a fantastic job, and Justin, you mentioned the Grange.
Yeah.
Perhaps maybe you can do 750 and 250, because like you mentioned, the Grange is stepping up. They're filling in a gap that was left this week. And they're essentially providing the same service as the food bank, kind of. So, in order not to, I guess, choose one over the other, but be fair to both organizations, maybe we can split a little bit, and I'm not on those numbers, but maybe we can split some of that to go towards the Range group that is also, they started delivering service before delivery service was a thing.
Yeah, and I definitely don't want to leave them out, so you're saying more like 7,500 to Wall-Gap at 2,500?
Yeah, whatever number sounds good.
Yeah, I like that. And what Amy was telling me, so I don't know if you guys know a lot about the backpack program, but it's really, like, the list of people that get it is confidential. They're children and families that are in need, and for a variety of different reasons, that list is not a public list. But what's also happening, while Amy and her volunteers coordinate that backpack program, just by doing what they're doing, they're having people come up to them as well, that are not part of it, adults or other children that are asking for things, and so they're seeing an influx of demand. And so I definitely think if we can support them as well in a similar way, that is gonna be super helpful. And so if we're gonna have $10,000 on the table here, and we're gonna, I think, 7,500 to Wall-Gap and 2,500 to Grange would be great.
One more thing, on that school thing, school is going to be out for the rest of the year, according to the governor. That kind of puts up everything up in the air for a lot of the kids that, depend on going to school to get a meal or two.
Yeah.
So, and the backpack for kids, if everybody doesn't know, it's essentially a grocery bag that is sent with the kids on Fridays to supplement their meals for Saturday and Sunday, the days that they're not at school receiving those meals. So, I can see why that list is kept confidential, because these are kids that are gonna miss out otherwise on eating, somewhat a decent meal on the weekend because they're not at school. And then the other thing is, from the EOC today, I heard that the state is offering possible help to the food banks in the state in two ways, either food donations and product, and or personnel in the form of national guardsmen, especially for those that need a lot of personnel. I think our community is filled with a lot of volunteers here, as opposed to the cities. However, if you guys hear about that, let me caution you that the state makes a lot of promises. One of the things that we're dealing with on the other side, and that we deal with at the fire department, is the promise of PPE compete with the big cities. So we're gonna be left, like typical American towns fending for each other, taking care of each, neighbors taking care of neighbors.
Justin, I'd propose that we carry this discussion either into committee activity or into an additional meeting. We're running out of time tonight, and we've gone quite a ways to other items, very good items.
Yeah,
I think we need to wrap it up.
if I had a PowerPoint, this would have gone quicker.
Yes.
I just had a quick deal, Mayor. Could we change the wording for wall gap from food to household goods? And that would cover toilet paper and those essential items?
I think we could, but we'll need to consult with WAGAP exactly how that can be handled. I'm on the board for that particular agency, and we will be discussing it very, very quickly. But I think it's a good suggestion.
Well, we'll put something together, we'll coordinate with those, I'll talk to Leslie, and we'll put some contract language together, we can share it next meeting. That was pretty much it for me. I was just gonna update about community days, and it's basically, we're not canceling it yet, but we're proceeding with caution. We're kind of waiting to see how things go. Obviously, we might not legally be allowed to have it, in which case we won't. But if we're able to, I think we're going to still be able to put something together. It might be a scaled back version of what we originally intended, but if we're able to do it, we will do it. So that's kind of my quick little community days update. So kind of good news. It's not bad news. That's how I keep thinking about it. Okay, that's it for me. Sorry to stick forever.
No, it was a very good discussion, Justin. Thank you. We'll go on. Justin's given his department report as well in this presentation. We'll go now to department reports with Reggie, our task air police chief, on his department report. Reggie?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I hope everybody can hear me, but I just want to give kind of a quick update on the police department during kind of these unprecedented times. The first thing is our criminal calls for service have dramatically declined since the COVID virus has taken the news. Our arrest, and that's taking people to jail, has really declined, so this is really good news. But on the other hand, our civil calls for service are quite a bit up. And when I say civil calls, I'm talking about like welfare checks. We're doing a significant amount of welfare checks for our elderly here in town. And again, we have a lot of people calling us from family that's outside of the city and other cities throughout the state of Washington or throughout the whole nation, ask us to check on their elderly parents. And we've been able to pretty much handle most of those calls. For the criminal part, we did have a case just recently. Last Thursday, on March 26th, we did respond to a motor vehicle theft that was at the Mid-Columbia Veterinary Clinic. It was a Honda Civic that was stolen from the clinic. The Goldendale police, we investigated that, and we went ahead and sent out information to all of our surrounding cities and our surrounding counties with information about that stolen vehicle. Later that night, we found that a credit card that was stolen with the vehicle was used at a McDonald's in the Tri-Cities area. We immediately started contacting all of the Tri-City agencies, and the next day, the Kennewick Police Department was able to locate the stolen Honda Civic vehicle and located 3 suspects with that vehicle. At this time, we're still doing an investigation and partnering with the Kennewick Police Department, and things are going extremely well. What we found was the people that, the suspects that stole the vehicle, they are not from Goldendale. They actually were in Portland and just traveling up Highway 97 when they had car trouble. And from having car trouble, they went ahead and found this vehicle and stole it and then continued on to the Tri-Cities. So these are not local suspects that were involved in this. To answer a few questions about what the police department's doing with the COVID virus, we have closed our police lobby. We are open. We always have our support staff there to answer calls and still do public records disclosures and still doing business as normal, but we're not allowing people into our lobby. I'm also having our officers take as many calls for service from the telephone instead of responding to people's residents. If at all possible, we're trying to do everything by telephone. Our officers, we're pretty good, or we're pretty well equipped right now with personal protective equipment. Most of our cars, we still have quite a few masks. We've got boxes and boxes of gloves, and we also have Tyvek suits that we can put on to protect our clothing. The officers are, again, doing everything that has been recommended by doing a 6-foot social distancing. We're washing our hands. The officers 2 times a day are required to wash their workstations and to wash their patrol cars. We don't have any officers that are sharing patrol cars, so this is just their own personal patrol cars. And at this point, we don't have any officers working together at the same time. We'll have good distance between our officers, and this is something we've been doing for 3 weeks, again, to try to keep our officers healthy and not seeing each other. At this time, we don't have any officers who are sick, and I'm extremely grateful for that. We are patrolling the streets extremely active. We are still taking calls. We're not reducing any of the calls that we go on, just that we're taking them by telephone. And I'm trying to have a good presence out there on the streets, especially at nighttime, so people know that we still will respond. And if people are seeing suspicious activity or suspicious people in their neighborhoods, still give us a call, give our dispatch a call, and we will immediately respond to those type of calls. And lastly, Mayor and Council, I'd just like to say thank you to Justin Lay. He's done just a great job. We've been able to partner with a lot of questions about essential businesses. That's a big job, a lot of confusion at first, a lot of phone calls that we were taking, and Justin has taken a pretty big burden off of my shoulders by tackling that, and he's doing an extremely good job, and I do appreciate that. And Mayor, with that, that's the end of my report.
Thanks, Reggie. Thank you very much. Do we have any report from the... No. Okay, I know the fire department has received training, a lot of it, I think, by Reggie, on the safety aspects of it, and we've talked with Noah about that, and I think they're in good shape, but we don't have a report tonight. We'll go on now to resolutions, and Larry Bellamy will present a declaration of emergency that will probably clear up some of the gaps in the original declaration. Larry?
Well, at the last council meeting, the mayor issued a proclamation declaring a state of emergency for the city of Goldendale, and it was recommended by our attorney that we prepare a resolution that would ratify some of those things and discuss what actions we have taken with regard to that state of emergency for the city. And so I wanted to kind of go through some of those actions that we have taken, some of the policies that we've implemented to the council, and then ask for their approval. The first thing I want to do is, I noticed here that all the dates that I have for April 19th have since I wrote this resolution, the governor has extended it now till May 4th. So one change that we will have to make is all the April 19th dates will have to change to May 4th, which is the new extension made by the governor in his declaration of emergency. And then, of course, that also means under the first bullet here, under the April 6, 2020 regular business meeting, we'll have to extend that, and we'll have to hold the next regular business meeting of the city council on the 20th. That will have to be held remotely. And then as we've all talked about, we have closed all of the buildings that the city owns. including the city hall, the fire department, police department, we talked about that. We closed the gates at Econi Park to notify the public that those are closed. The public works departments are closed to the public, which they normally are anyway, but we just wanted to make sure that that was acknowledged in this resolution. And then we have taken some steps to give people who are having a harder time making their payments on the utilities. We have put off disconnecting municipal utilities because of non-payment. And that will remain while we're in this declaration of the state of emergency. If there are situations where there's really untenable things that a citizen has, we will take the necessary steps. We can't necessarily forgive everything, but we can sure make payment plans, and we can not shut off their water and things like that. So on the second page in the bullets, the mayor's authorized to request state and federal assistance if there's a need for that. And he may take whatever steps, in the next bullet, he may take whatever steps he deems necessary and reasonable to respond and to protect the health and safety. So we talked a little bit about that tonight, even as we talked about our crew and how to keep our own staff protected for their public health and safety. And then the last bullet was for some discussion, or for identifying some ways that we can help keep our employees safe and well. And then also kind of entwined in that is we want to make sure we have good continuity of operations. We have a very small staff, and there are some parts of our staff that we cannot live without. And so, for instance, we only have 2 wastewater treatment plant operators. Well, the city doesn't want them to fall ill both at the same time. So we have taken steps to split the staff, different sections of the staff, into groups, and then they are working part-time and then administrative leave for other times. So for instance, our 2 administrative staff, we have one on and one off in the course of a week. So instead of having them both here, they're on days that they're not here. One is on, and then they never have an occasion to see each other, so that we can hopefully be able to not have them sick at the same time. We also have done some telecommuting. The mayor is making a practice of staying at home. Connie has a workstation at home, and so she is doing telecommuting, as is Justin. He's doing telecommuting as well. So as far as administrative staff, we have 2 in the office, and one works a week on and the other works a week off. The 2 treatment plant guys I talked about, and then on the city crew, there's 2 3-man shifts,
Right.
and then 1 supervisor who works 5/8. And the other thing that I will make sure we address are some of the safety and health things related to protecting our employees, which we talked about a little bit tonight, and the mayor and I, and with the help of Justin and maybe even the county, we can get some information about different policies that have been put into place that work for them, and we can implement those policies as a part of this resolution as well. So those are the actions we've taken as a result of the declaration of emergency that was proclaimed by the mayor, and we would request that this resolution be approved and that the mayor be authorized to take these necessary steps to keep our employees safe and well.
Do we have a motion on this declaration of emergency from the council?
I move to approve, this is Shannon, I move to approve resolution number 708, proclaiming a declaration of emergency due to COVID-19.
Do we have a second?
That's my level. Okay, go ahead.
This is Julie, I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 708 to proclaim a declaration of emergency due to COVID-19. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? If not, the declaration is passed by unanimous vote. Thank you. Thank you all. The next item on the agenda that we have something to work with is a report of officers and the city administrator. We'll begin with Larry Bellamy.
I think we've talked enough. I don't want to extend it any longer, so we got a lot of work ahead of us to still do with regard to this emergency resolution. And we have our marching orders, and I think that we can accomplish that in the next couple of weeks.
Does anybody on the council have a report that they want to give tonight?
This is the Milan Mayor. I don't want to say, Justin, you did a very good job, and especially under the circumstance that we're in right now.
Thank you.
Any other remarks or questions or comments?
I just want to say good luck, Justin.
Good luck, Justin.
Yeah, Justin has taken on an awful lot and is doing a superb job, and we're appreciative, very appreciative. The mayor doesn't have anything other than to thank everybody for the cooperation that the council is giving to the city, as well as the residents of the city are giving to our police, to our fire, and to our public health officials to help to protect all of our citizens. And thank you. We'll go now to public comment. This is a little bit different because we don't know whether anybody is on the line.
Nobody else is.
Nobody's else.
Okay, nobody else
Only
has gotten.
Nancy's here.
Pardon me?
If Nancy wants to say something.
No, I do not want to say anything, thank you.
If not, the next regular session of our city council, and done again remotely, will be on April 20th. And we'll have a workshop during that time. And hopefully as good a discussion as we had tonight. With that, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Is that Shannon?
Yes.
Yes.
Lauren, second.
All in favor?
Very good. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn this session of the City Council for April 6, 2020. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Mayor. Good night.
Thanks.